staff nurse. I work in Cohasset, Scituate, and Hingham. So welcome to everyone who came tonight. This is going to be recorded, so the recording is not of you all, but just in case like you get up to go to the bathroom, like the cameras are back there. So just so that you're aware, they'll only be filming the presenters and the presentation. So tonight we're going to be talking about campus health and safety. So it's so super important that, kids go off to college or who are in college or getting ready to go to college, whether it's right down the street at Curry or Northeastern, or if they're going out of state, it's super important for them to be aware of all of the risk factors. Even since I was in college, there's just so much more going on. And it's important that we try to educate our students and our children and make sure that they know how to cope with certain situations, that they know how to help their friends through certain situations, and they know when to get help if needed. So we're going to hear from a few people tonight. I'm super grateful that you guys volunteered your time. And I'd like to introduce Susanna Murphy first. She's going to chat with you guys about some sexual assault situations.
Hi, everyone. So first and foremost, I'm a Hingham mom. My daughter graduated from college in January. My son's leaving for a senior year of college this week. So I know where you all are right now, but I'm also an attorney who specializes in Title IX. And in that role, and I'm a late addition to the program. I'm only going to talk for a couple of minutes. You're welcome to reach out to me with other further questions, but so I'm hired by colleges and universities across the country to investigate allegations of sexual assault or sexual harassment on campus. I'm also hired by students who are going through the process, whether they've been the victim or whether they're alleged to have violated Title IX, alleged to have committed a sexual assault or sexual harassment. So I have a very in-depth knowledge of all aspects of the issue and of the situation. I have offered programs here in the past, and in accordance with the request of my kids, I stopped for a period while their peers were seniors, and fair enough. But it is a really popular program because obviously this is of grave concern to everyone, whether they're sending a son or daughter or whomever off to school. And I can't possibly cover all those topics in just the few minutes that I have, but I just wanted to mention to you some things you could talk about with your student, or if you're a student, talk about with your friends. Every college and university is required to provide mandatory training on Title IX. Those trainings, having watched my own kids do those trainings before they head off for freshman year, are kind of saccharine. They're kind of bland and removed. They're pre-recorded, and your student is sitting at their desk in the summer, clicking through the slides, maybe taking a test at best, not really engaging in the topic. And most people are going to say, yeah, no means no. Don't have sex with someone if they're drunk. Like, that's what the main takeaway is. And my suggestion to you in this short period of time is ask your student, what did you learn about? And start a conversation. And where you can move forward from there is say, well, what does that look like? Because most people hear no means no, but maybe talk to your daughter about, well, what if you go back to a guy's room with him and you realize once you get there, you're not comfortable? Because it's the actual sort of going through the thought process of how am I going to get myself out of this situation that causes a lot of people to freeze up in that situation. I will tell you, most people think that the vast majority of cases I get are probably drunk female, aggressive, athletic male, aggressively having sex with her and not caring that she can't consent. That's a very small portion of what I get. So first of all, any gender combination, anyone can be a perpetrator, anyone can be a victim. It can be any combination of things. I also would say well over 50% of my cases involve relationships where, well into a relationship or after a relationship has ended, someone's alleging that things weren't consensual. So that really provides the basis for a conversation you could be having with your student about being in a healthy relationship or getting out of an unhealthy relationship. Same with bystander intervention, speaking up if you have a friend who you feel isn't in a healthy relationship. because a lot of those evolve into sexual assault or allegations of sexual assault that maybe are not well-founded. Just a couple of quick points I want to make is if your student is alleged of a Title IX violation or is the victim of a Title IX violation of a sexual assault, there are a couple of things you should tell them right away. First of all, every parent supports their child through the process, no matter what. And it is really important that your kids know before they head off to school, you will support them no matter what mistake they make. I have handled hundreds of these cases. I've never had a set of parents that didn't support their student. And so when I meet a student, the first thing I say to them is, your parents will support you. That's not to say they're going to tell you every detail, but they need to know that. They also need to know that they will get through this. It is really typical of this age group to think when a crisis strikes that this is the end of the world and they can't see a way out, and they need to know they'll get through it. I've never had a student not get through it, but they can't see that in the moment, and it's important that they recognize that. The other thing is if they have a friend who's going through the process, which is more likely than your child actually being involved in one, it's incredibly important that they support their friend, but they shouldn't take it a step further and start harassing the other party or going out of their way to take a stand publicly, because not that they can't take a stand publicly on the issue, but with respect to the specific case, that can trigger all sorts of allegations of retaliation. They can be charged with harassment, and it makes the entire case more difficult for both sides of the issue. And if they do end up involved with the case, it's incredibly important that they get an advisor who knows Title IX, not your cousin who's a trust and estate lawyer or even a criminal defense lawyer. It's a very specialized area. So seek help from a professional in this particular area. That is just like a teeny tiny tidbit of the greater topic, but I just wanted to share that with you. I don't want students afraid to go to college. They should go and have an amazing time, but these conversations help empower them if those situations do come up. So thank you and good luck.
Thank you so much. Susanna actually reached out to me after seeing the flyer, so I'm super grateful that you were able to come tonight. And that opened, I feel like, a huge segue to something that everybody here is going to touch upon anyway. So just kind of piggybacking, I won't take any of your your presentations away, but just some things that you talked about is making sure that your student or you as a student are comfortable seeking help, knowing where that help is before something happens. I'm sure Officer Corbett's going to talk about that. Mental health, making sure that our students or ourselves are mentally aware of ourselves, make sure that we're healthy and in the right state of mind. And if you do make a mistake in a moment or you feel like you made a mistake, knowing that you have a support system and where to go, even if you're away from home. So I think that was a great segue. I'm going to have Officer Joseph Corbett come on up with Sarge, his K-9. He's from Northeastern University, and he's been doing these types of presentations for a long time. So thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Sergeant Joe Corbett. I work at Northeastern University in our community engagement unit. And this is my partner, K-9 Sarge. We call him a community resource dog. We actually have two of them on campus, Sarge and his partner, Cooper, who's a golden retriever. And I'll just do a quick brief about him, just so we call him community resource dogs. We use them for engagement purposes. We go to events just like this at our campus or any other place within the United States. One of our team was up in Portland at our campus today. He's also an explosive detection K-9. So we work with the Mass State Bomb Squad to do sweeps and find bombs and stuff like that. Luckily, we haven't. He's a little worked up right now because this is a different place for him. Let me just introduce myself. Again, I'm Sergeant Joe Corbett. I am from Rockland. That's where I live right now with my family, but I grew up in Scituate. This is my hometown area. So South Shore is definitely my place. I can't go north of the city. It drives me crazy. But I did my undergraduate at Stonehill and then got my master's at Northeastern for free because I worked there, which was great. About 22 years law enforcement, about 19 of those years have been in higher education, mostly at Northeastern. Again, currently I'm assigned to our community engagement unit where we do a lot of programming, safety, security, and just engagement like coffee and teas and stuff like that with our students, just to promote our services, our programming, what we do for law enforcement on the campus, and things like that. So this program we named it Safe Choices. And a friend of mine, her name's Kristen Pierce. When we created this, she was the resident director, the director of housing at Stonehill. And now she's the dean of students at Emmanuel College. So a couple of years ago, her husband was a vice principal at Foxborough, and they had a program just like this for their students. And we developed this program to help out, rising seniors and students that were going off to college the following year. And it's sort of an overview of, safety on campus, some of the things that people should be aware of, and some of the services that are available in most colleges. We touch upon mostly some of the stuff that we were familiar with, but across the board, most universities and colleges are very similar in the way they provide safety and security to their students, and the programming that they provide through that, either through their public safety or police departments. So if you have any questions this time, let me know. So one of the things, we always start off with just some situational awareness where, we tell students to be aware of their surroundings. Nowadays, a lot of students are walking with their cell phones in their hands. I had a guy walking down the sidewalk. I have a giant black dog, and he almost walked right into him because his head was in his cell phone. And with a lot of problems with that in terms of just injuries alone, amongst other things on campuses. Most college campuses are open communities. Anybody can go to them, especially in the city. I know Stonehill was a very small kind of gated community to some degree, but pretty much anybody could go there at the time. Northeastern, we have no fences. The city of Boston's right there. So anybody can come to our campus, and we want that too. We want that engagement with our communities. And a lot of universities are like that. So that means that anybody can show up and for any sort of reason. So we always tell people, just be aware of your surroundings, be aware of who is around you, who you're with. Try to avoid walking alone at night, especially in the cities. We always ask, people to have walking groups or let somebody know where you're going. College students nowadays have a lot of fancy bling cell phones, computers, AirPods, and there's a lot of people that don't come from some means that some students may have, even that they're at the same college. So they look at those things as targets to take advantage of. We also talk about street smarts with a lot of our students about, being aware of your surroundings, know where you're going, know who your friends are. Always say that, when the hair on the back of your neck stands up, that's a sign that you probably should avoid the area, avoid the person, or whatever it may be. And a lot of universities and campuses offer safety escorts or, check-ins, things like that. So a lot of people should take advantage of those. I know our university, we run a 24/7 safety escort. They can call our department at any point in time, and we'll provide an escort from point A to point B on the campus. And then we have a shuttle for anybody who lives off campus. And a lot of universities all over the country offer the similar thing because we just don't want somebody to have an issue going off campus or any place. We don't want to have that risk taken on that. So we've decided that we want to have a shuttle that goes from our campus to your door, not just to a bus stop or someplace like that. Our university, it's a door-to-door service, which is great throughout the night. Safety on campus, a lot of universities leverage technology in terms of safety and protection on campus. So we have a lot of cameras, blue light phones, emergency services. This is kind of the same slide. But, we offer a lot of our trainings through a lot of different groups. And then we provide a lot of information on social media safety, which is a huge problem for us nowadays with, threats or scams on social media. So we also offer a lot of trainings on that, just people be aware of what they're putting out there, especially on social media, and what information is available, what information they're giving them, what people are asking them to do. Res Hall security is one of the key points for us in terms of our security programming. And I know a lot of universities are like that in that they have layers of security when it comes to residence halls, either by, either a door that's secured at all the times or secured at different times, or if they have a proctor that is at the door where you have to actually swipe in with your ID. It just depends on, the size of your university or college and, what they see as their threats in terms of their res halls. I know at Northeastern, we have proctors at all of our res halls. So that means that anybody going in there has to live in that building and have to swipe in with a proctor. If they are a guest, they have to sign in. There are guest limits to how many guests a student can have in there. So there's not a huge party showing up. Usually it's about 3 or 4 students, depending on the place. A lot of the buildings all have security alarm systems. So usually that restricts people from going in and out of doors that they're not supposed to go into. At Northeastern University, anytime a door alarm goes off, because kids do go through the doors and set them off just because it's an easier way out, we send a police officer over to check that door to make sure it's secure, make sure that there are no other issues around that area. We have duress alarms. We have cameras. Our campus, we have about 800 cameras on campus. Every lobby of the res halls has a camera. And they're not monitored, but they are used for review of cases and things like that. And I know a lot more universities are going in that direction just to have that layer of security. For our apartments that are either our apartments or apartments that you may rent, we always offer a security survey. So we ask, we check, make sure the smoke detectors work, make sure that the door locks work, make sure that the windows lock work, and the windows have the riser restrictors that won't let the window open all the way so somebody can climb through. So before the semester starts, we always check those, and we always offer that as service out to our students as well. So it's a good thing to make sure, especially if you're renting an apartment. Sometimes the security at some rented apartments are not the best. I've seen some interesting places that students live in. We'll leave it at that. One big thing, follow the rules. That's the biggest thing. Is the rules are in place for a reason. Just try to follow the rules. It's a simple way to prevent any issues in res halls or other buildings and prevent issues with yourself. You may be thinking you're letting somebody in because, hey, I'm here to see my friend, but you don't know what their intentions are after the fact. Most universities have, like I said, the layered security services through, the RAs, the RDs in the res halls, the proctor services. And then they may have a public safety or police departments or a security department. I know at Northeastern, we have a full service police department, but we augment us with a private security company that are at points of access throughout our campus. So they're at little booths around campus that restrict some access for vehicles, things like that. Our crime prevention, a lot of our emergency medical services comes through us. A lot of our police officers are EMTs. So a lot of medical services calls that come in we'll be able to deal with in an immediate fashion. Fire safety is a huge issue on college campuses. Every year there's a dorm fire someplace, and usually, hopefully, most of the times they're not tragic, but it does happen. So fire safety is a serious issue. People cover up smoke detectors, or they like to hang their clothes hangers off the sprinkler heads, and it ends up flooding the dorms because they break the sprinkler heads. So we're very stringent upon that on our campus. So the common crimes that most parents are concerned with include sexual assault is usually number one, is what they're concerned with. Drugs and alcohol, robbery, assaults. But the most common crimes that we actually see on campus are larcenies, number one, 100%, followed up by vandalism, mostly in dorms, res halls, where they're damaging ceiling tiles or exit signs. More kids walk out through an exit door and smashing the exit sign off the ceiling for some reason. And then disorderly conduct, people just being rowdy for the most part. I will have to say, in my 20-ish years in university campus law enforcement, the amount of partying has definitely gone down. You go to the library on a Friday night 20 years ago, and there's nobody in there. They're all in the apartments drinking from kegs. Go to the library now at 2 a.m. on a Friday night, and it's packed. The dynamic is changed drastically, which is a good thing. Alcohol and drug use is always a major concern. A lot of things come out of alcohol use. A lot of the issues arise out of that in terms of domestic issues, and that includes roommates is where usually a lot of those issues come out of. The number one hospitalization in college is for alcohol-related transportation issues. Not a lot of people are falling down and getting hurt. They're all falling down and getting hurt because they're drunk. And it's also one of the most common reasons for campus discipline. The good thing about campus discipline, especially at our university, is we're an educational institution. We're there for people to learn. Our disciplinary process is more of an educational process than it is you did something wrong, now you're in trouble, you have to pay the cost. It's more like something happened, it was a mistake, how can we learn from this, how can we improve from this? And I definitely think that view of things is lost on students coming into college because mostly as parents, like you did something wrong, now you gotta go sit in your room. But in college, things happen, you need to learn from your mistakes, but how are you gonna improve from that? And it's usually when it goes down the line of we give you the option to improve and you haven't improved, then that's where discipline comes in down the road.
Most colleges tend to console the person who's helping someone.
Yes.
Very clear in the training.
Yes. So we have, especially in our university, what do they call it? Medical amnesty. So if somebody stays with somebody who's sick or injured or whatever because of alcohol, drugs, whatever, and somebody stays with them, calls for help, no matter what the circumstances, usually they will have the opportunity to meet with somebody to discuss what happened, but you won't have any repercussions from that. And it's a great tool that makes sure that people are good bystanders and are helping their fellow students. And that's we've started to promote that a lot more, that bystander safety, which is very important because the fellow students, we don't want to see anything bad to happen to them. And I think it's definitely increased over the years in my view of things, of people looking out for each other, calling for help or calling, not to tattletale, but like they see something wrong and they want somebody to know about it.
Yeah, because kids are not drinking as much in high school as they might have 20 years ago, and so they hit these campuses,
Yep.
and they actually do pay attention to things on campus, and they remember the bystander rule, and then they do vote.
Yep.
Because I know people who do vote.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but they know they're going to be okay, so it's good.
Yeah.
The system's working.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the good things is like the messaging is definitely changing over the years, and the messaging is definitely getting out, I think. And I think it comes from some of that social media stuff that people see about being good people and things like that. So it definitely helps. Alcohol enforcement is, definitely something we do. We used to do it way more, and I'll show you a picture and a video shortly. But it's definitely one of those things that is kind of curtailed over the past few years just because the dynamic of college students has definitely changed. But it's definitely one of those things we look out for because we want to prevent things from happening before they happen, really. We want to head things off before they become a problem. We want to, catch the kids walking in with the hockey bags full of beers because then there's going to be a party where somebody's going to get assaulted later. And if we can avoid those problems before they happen, it's advantageous for us in the long run for everybody else. And like our university, we work with Boston Police, the Alcohol Beverage Commission for a lot of those things, especially at the beginning of the year. September, they move in next week, so the week after we'll be out. Our detectives will be out in plain clothes looking for people. And so this was a weekend haul from several years ago. It was a while ago because there's still beer balls up there and stuff, and they don't sell those anymore. So that was a while ago, but I'll show you a quick snippet of this video if you can see it. This is back in my detective days. Whoa. So this is the stuff we had seized over a couple of weeks of alcohol enforcement. This is years ago. This is back when I wore a tie and you couldn't catch me wearing a tie anymore. So you get the impression of that. It goes on for a lot longer too, which is it's crazy. The whole thing's like full of beer and stuff, and it's gross. Yeah, it's gross. And the truck's driving away when we leave, it's just pouring out the back. It wasn't the most thought out thing. The theft of, like I said, larceny is the number one crime on our campuses. And campuses across the board is the number one crime. And theft of unattended property is what it is. It's not somebody just like snatching a purse or anything like that. It's the student leaving a laptop on the countertop in the library because they need to go to use the bathroom, and they walk away for 2-3 minutes, and somebody's going to come by and take it. It's usually, victim-oriented crime because the victim is the one who kind of allowed it to happen. So we provide trainings on it. We provide property registration. So for our university, and I know a lot of other universities, you can register your laptops and other electronics completely for free. And it's a little tab that kind of prevents, it's a visual ID that you'll see that if it's, no, this one doesn't have it. It says a big red tag that says like stop. And so, people are going to steal something. They're not going to steal that. They're going to steal the one next to it that doesn't have anything on it. Most common things, bikes, backpacks, cell phones, things like that. And usually it's in common areas, libraries, student centers, food courts, common areas of res halls, unlocked rooms, like students leave their doors unlocked because they're just going to go visit other places, and other kids will walk in there and take it. I always tell the story, this is years ago before like cloud computing where you could basically save stuff a lot easier. There was a PhD student who left his laptop unattended in the student center, went to the bathroom I had him on video for 2 minutes. 2 minutes, he was gone. He came back and somebody had stolen his laptop. His entire PhD thesis was on his laptop. Gone. He had some stuff saved elsewhere, but for the most part, about 80% of his thesis for his PhD, for his doctorate, was gone because he had to go to the bathroom. So, like I said, never leave things unattended. Make sure you secure all your valuables. Document any serial numbers, things like that, just because a lot of times your homeowner's insurance will cover theft of stuff from your students' dorm rooms. I would always suggest checking on that and make sure that is in your policy because it does help, especially with valuable equipment. Keep records of it. Make sure it's in a secure place. Make sure your room's locked. It's very preventable to happen. Scams is a huge one nowadays for us. Usually I tell people is if it sounds too good to be true, it is. If somebody's offering you money for no apparent reason, it's usually a scam. Or if they're threatening you in some sort of form or fashion, like, you're usually with international students, it's your visa's expired and you need to renew it, but you need to, pay with it with Apple iTunes gift cards. And you'd be surprised how many people shell out the money for that. We've had some students lose thousands and thousands of dollars from their bank accounts through a scam. And a lot of times we had one the other day. They actually used the phone number it came from was our department's emergency phone number is what came up on his phone. So they call it spoofing, and they have that came up. So usually we ask people, no one's going to ask you for money. No one's going to threaten you over the phone. No one's going to, immigration or customs or whoever is not going to call you and tell you your visa's expired. So just make sure you go through vetted sources if you're going to rent an apartment, things like that. So scams are definitely where a lot of money is coming from. A lot of things are happening. A lot of social media. That's why I said, protect yourself on social media. Don't put a lot of information out there because the scammers are scouring the internet for that kind of information, and that's how they're getting some personal data from you. Violent crime is rare. It's usually student versus student. You have students that are new to each other living in a small box of a dorm room sometimes, and they don't get along, or it's just a disagreement in a lab over something. Usually it's student versus student, usually alcohol related, and oftentimes it occurs in the res halls. There's not a lot of, especially on our campus, street crime, I would say, of somebody attacking somebody on the street for no apparent reason. Domestic violence is a huge issue. We actually just had an arrest yesterday for domestic violence. And like, again, in the state of Massachusetts, people who cohabitate together, even in dorm rooms, are considered domestic partners under the law per se. And so the domestic violence laws apply to roommates as well. So it's not necessarily a boyfriend, girlfriend. It could be two guys living in a res hall dorm room that get into a fight over something and one hits the other. One of them is going to end up going to jail. So, you know, it's not just restricted to dating or married or families and things like that. So this is one of the things we definitely we always try to pass on to our students, that they understand the domestic violence laws, because in the state of Massachusetts, it's a mandatory arrest for a domestic violence situation. Usually we try to tell people that if you start in getting into a disagreement or an aggressive behavior, start looking for the warning signs, like people starting being aggressive or acting out or anything like that. Remove yourself from this situation. There's a lot of good resources on campuses through either housing, Res Life, health and counseling. We have an office called We Care, which is a group of under Student Affairs that coordinates with health and counseling, Res Life, Title IX office. So there's a lot of good resources that kind of help people avoid these situations before they become a violent situation. Sort of covered this already a little, but sexual assault is definitely a concern on college campuses. It is, I wouldn't say it's getting better. In the years past, it was woefully underreported. Very minimally reported for whatever reason. It's gotten a little better, but still, I don't remember the number of how many reported versus not reported, but the number is pretty significant off each other. But definitely one of those things we take seriously. There are different avenues within universities. They can go through the judicial affairs process in a university if they want and not go through a court process. Or they can go through a court process if they want to, pursuing criminal charges for whatever the situation may be. We provide a lot of resources. Our department is, if anybody is in a situation like this, we will take them to every hearing that they need to go to. We'll give them a ride to every hearing they need to go to. We'll walk them through every process that we need to. For if it's a domestic violence or a sexual assault, in terms of restraining orders or harassment prevention orders, we'll take them to court. We'll help them through all the paperwork, and we'll be there with them every step of the way. Then we'll also get them to the resources they need within the university through our health and counseling, our We Care office, or judicial affairs, or our Title IX office as well. So under our, Title IX covers, sexual harassment, but it's sexual assault, stalking, sexual contact, other, what else? That's not on the slide. Stalking, harassment. I'm forgetting one off the top of my head for some reason. So these are all the mandatory requirements. A lot of departments throughout the campus are mandatory reporters. So especially like in Res Life, if they get information that there has been some type of Title IX issue, they have to report it so that at least we are aware of it, so that we can provide services to the students that need it. They can always tell us that they don't want any service, they don't want to report it, and at least we have it documented that something happened, because if they decide, 5, 2, 5, 10, whatever, how many years later they want to bring this back up, they certainly can. And so we have that information. Kind of touch upon this a little. We always talk to our students about warning signs in terms of when issues come to a head with somebody, either in your place of work. I always talk about, anybody work in retail, bad customers that start getting aggravated. When is it to walk away? When is it to ask for help? But also in terms of warning signs for students of concerned behavior. So, some students now this is the first time they're on their own. They don't have that umbrella, parachute, or whatever it is of a family assistance. And now certain mental health issues start rising, certain care issues, financial issues come up. So we always advise, especially our Res Life, because they're always in the res halls and they're seeing how people are living. to be aware of any, violent situations where people come into contact with somebody, or, if they're having just some mental health issues. And we have a lot of great resources for that as well on campus to kind of head off things before they become a bigger problem. And our goal is always to make sure that somebody has the best opportunity they have in the campus to be successful. So we have the opportunities for taking leave and things like that. Some examples: outbursts, damaging property, drug and alcohol use, coping. Financial problems is definitely one of those things. Definitely, family comes up every now and then. Breakups definitely happens. That's where we see a lot of issues where, and it can sometimes lead into depressions or stalking, kind of go both ways. Dealing with hostile persons, this is probably more for people like students living there. But we offer a training for de-escalation. I think we're one of the rare few universities where we have a standalone trainings on how to de-escalate in a situation. And we offer that for students as well as our staff. And we do some role playing, things like that, which is great. And one of my favorite quotes that I don't think we have in here, but my lieutenant says, "Never in the history of telling somebody to calm down has anybody ever calmed down." So we taught the people about how to kind of avoid those situations where you can, not rise to somebody's level and become calm and, be effective in your words and your actions so that you or anybody else doesn't become harmed and the situation can be better resolved. I kind of touched upon this already. The active bystanders, we definitely promote this a lot more on college campuses. And it's more like students looking out for other students. So if they see concerning behavior, we want this to be reported. We want somebody to know about it so that we can take advantage of the services that we have on campus. We have a lot of great services in college campuses in terms of mental health. Mental health is before it was, like I said, it was the alcohol calls. Now it's our mental health calls. There isn't a day that goes by that we don't respond to mental health calls. And it's one of the reasons why we actually have 2 dogs on our campus, is because we respond to a lot of those calls. Because usually it may be something that, hey, they can sit down and talk with a dog. We have people who are homesick. I've had a student, she was homesick. She decided she wanted to come in and talk. She just wanted to hang out with the dogs, and come to find out she had some trauma in her past. And we were able to get her the resources for that. And it went from just somebody who was like, hey, I want to hang out with the dog, I just miss my dog, to somebody who had some actual serious issues in her past. And that was one of the first times she had brought it up. So the effectiveness of the dogs and the effectiveness of the services that our campus and a lot of other campuses have out there are astronomical, because it's one of those things that we definitely want to make sure that there's good well-being in our campus and people can live, work, and learn in a safe environment.
Do you mind if I just add
Yeah.
something to that?
Yeah, definitely. And we've over the years we've just expanded upon our services through, like I said, our office is called We Care, which is our student affairs, but they combine health and counseling, housing services, a bunch of other things, just so it's sort of that one-stop shop for things that they can service a variety of different problems that students may come across. But we've developed, 24/7 a clinician to call in so that they can at least get somebody in contact immediately, and then they can have some follow-up stuff after that. So I know a lot more universities are building out those types of programs, but to your point, like there's the amount of need versus the amount of service is completely imbalanced. And now, like the good thing is, like, a lot of more people are seeking the help, because I know when I was in college, not existent, or at least I didn't take advantage of it because I didn't know about it, or it wasn't my problem. But I know from what it was 20 something years ago to what it is now it's a lot different, which is great. So that's like the brief overview of college campus policing and the services and stuff we provide. I appreciate your time.
You guys don't even need me here because you're like rolling into each other, which is great. So now we're gonna have. It's gonna kill me to say your first name because I've known you for so. I know I've known you for so long. I call you Mr. Regan. So this is Tom Regan. He is the owner and operator of Regan's Motivated Fitness, and he's gonna talk a lot about like staying healthy, and he's gonna bring some mental awareness as well, which will be nice to follow up. Come on up,
Kayla.
Yeah.
And how great that information was, really helpful. I didn't have that when I went to college. I'll start a timer because I could talk forever. so I'll put a little pressure on myself. I'm also a mental health counselor. I found that exercise led me to a level where when I was training people and coaching people and leading classes, that it got to that higher level. And I didn't have some of the answers, or I was just trying to help people get beyond being blocked. Could everybody stand up? Okay. And sit back down. And stand back up. Now, what were you just thinking then? Have a seat, have a seat. So that was a little uncomfortable, a little self-consciousness, right? And that's kind of what exercise is. The physical practice of exercise gives us a chance to work on our mental health, to see how we respond to things. And how we are is mostly how we're going to respond. A lot of these great things that we heard tonight is, how we are in those moments. How we are right now will really help us get the most out of this. And that's why I love exercise. It's a practice, adding that stress. So my experience, I was a mediocre amateur boxer. My best attribute was taking a punch. But I liked it. I just like the movement, getting going. And but I found martial arts. So I get into martial arts and was a martial arts instructor for about 15 years. And that led me, my children started playing sports, and they did pretty well. And then they sent them to like Team Massachusetts over to BU, and they had the sports and conditioning, but it was very expensive. So I got some books. I love books. And I started educating myself on plyometrics and sports conditioning. And I started a program over in South Boston. And we had like 50 plus kids. And it was just a great program, really, really good. And but that for me too was an evolution of, working with kids, learning new things. And I noticed how good I felt when I was part of a community, like with Susanna and Michaela and Sergeant, just being with other people doing good things is so important. So when we go to college, how many students we have? One? Okay, well, you get the first door prize. This book is incredible, okay? Really, really good. I'll talk about it in a little bit. You're welcome. How many people went to college? Now, what's your name? Maya. Now, Maya, watch. How many people would love to go back to college right now? Yeah, everybody's hands up, right? So, let me get this on. Yeah, so at martial arts, then I get another sports conditioning and got a whole bunch of certifications, personal trainer, certified strength condition specialist, yoga teacher, spin instructor, and I did a lot of long distance endurance, a couple of Ironman triathlon, cycled from LA to Boston. And when I say this, I start, oh my God, what? I sound like a big-headed person, but I did it for my mental health because when I moved, I felt better. On that large scale, yeah, cycling from LA to Boston, I took like a 30-day sabbatical when my last kid was out of the house. They went away to college, they were all gone. And I was like, what am I going to do? And it was like a sabbatical, and I went into a whole new career. And that's one thing when I was your age, a little older, Maya, and I got out of college and I went to meet some guy. Someone set up an appointment for me with this guy at Prime Computer. And I thought I was going in and getting a job, all set, got the connections. He gave me a life talk. And he told me that by the time I finished working, I will have had 5 major career changes in my life. That the days of just one career, one job are done. And that's what he was saying then. And I was just kind of like, huh? And the times were changing. And I think now the number's probably going to be 8 or so. But it gave me permission. It gave me freedom to go, look for a job and not feel like I had to find that perfect job or be the perfect person for it. I could just kind of work on me. And why don't I get to my slides because time's flying. Any questions, just please raise hands. Okay. Yes. So exercise. I really feel like exercise is a catalyst for the day and long term because that, when we get going, we hear all about dopamine, endorphins, and now they're talking about myokines. They call them hope molecules that are released from your muscles when you exercise. But here's James Clear wrote Atomic Habits. Anybody read that book? Great book. And I have notes for all these books that I can email you from my Kindle. I like to read, obviously, you'll see. If you can pick only one habit to build, exercise is the one. And 12 million copies of that sold. It's like one of the new number ones. Dr. Peter Attia, he's the longevity guy. Really, really good data. Exercise has a greater effect on lifespan and health span. That's how healthy we are during that lifespan than any other lifestyle factors, including sleep or nutrition. And this is going to be the hard part here. Number 2. All right, Move the Body, Heal the Mind. That's that book you have, Maya. And so she is a young lady who is going to school, and she's going through a lot, had a lot of anxiety, some depression, some challenges, some domestic challenges. And she got into, someone gave her a bicycle finally, and she started riding the bike, started feeling better. And, you know, she talks about this, but it's pretty well known out there that exercise is just as effective as antidepressants for mild to moderate anxiety, depression. And I really believe that. And I can't tell you how many people over the decades that I've been doing this stuff have just through exercising have been able to kind of, you know, get going in other things, right? You get better in one area of your life and it really is contagious. It's hard to exercise, all right? You know, a lot of times people, well, you don't get immediate results. And I got to call bullshit on that, excuse me. Baloney, right? Because that immediate result that you get is a good mood. You know, and it's key. Everyone says, oh, yeah, I feel good when I exercise. And that's what we want to focus on. Yeah, we want to have the long-range plan, but we want to get the process going. So process and outcome. Process is once you get working, walking even, right? That process can lead you to something else versus the outcome of, you know, I was going to say Ken and Barbie body because of the movie, but I didn't see it. Now, it's probably not politically correct or something. I'm sorry. All right. The mind's job. So part of that why exercise is so hard is because the mind's job is to keep us safe, to talk us out of any kind of exertion, because way back, you know, we had to, you know, conserve energy. So that's what the mind, so it's not just our willpower and whether we're lazy or not. You know, we're conditioned and programmed these days to kind of chill, take it easy, listen to the commercials. But we can flip that, right? So exercise for mood, that's the first thing. 20, 30 minutes. And you get the endorphins, the dopamine, and stress isn't a reason not to exercise. It's a reason to exercise. And that's from Dr. Heiss. And that's a great book. All right. So Mental Health America. Anybody familiar with this site? It's pretty good. So there's their website and there's their screen. It says 46% of us will have some kind of diagnosable mental health condition, excuse me, in their life. It says right now, they rate the states, Mass just went from 3 to 1. And I agree with what you're saying because I know how hard it is for people to get services now. But imagine it's hard. It's even harder in other places. But there's some other links here so that we can educate. I often will say to people like, all right, learn as much as you can. So when you get to see somebody, you have a lot of the base out of the way, right? You've picked up a few things. And these are really good mental health 101. How can I improve? Thinking traps, you know, thinking about thinking. That's always a good one, right? Metacognition. Really good stuff. So I would check that out. And in their screening, so they keep statistics on their screening test. And over the last few years, it's gone up to like 75, 79% testing positive for anxiety, depression, and trauma and such. So it's, you know, it's really tough times out there. 46% is the average over many years, but it has gotten a lot more challenging. All right, how to exercise. So start where you are. So assessments. So range of motion, right? I don't know if we have enough space here, but if I come over here, I was going to have everybody do it, but there's not enough space and you probably get aggravated. But if I put my heels here, my butt here, my head here, see what I have to do? That's my alignment and my posture and my physiology. It contributes greatly to my mental health and how I feel versus this is how I was growing up in the city, you know, real scared and everything, right? But now, open hands, open heart, and we walk like this, right? And no one bothers you. But start where you are. You know, really keep it simple, keep it strong. Get people to, you know, join with you. But assessments, I do a lot of mobility, balance, different strength. You tell me what you want, and then we agree on where we're going to start. And so you want to get the right info, and there's lots of people who will help you. If you can take one thing out of here, you know, you're not alone, but it takes that vulnerability, that courage to say, hey, can you help me? Set a goal for a month. It's called a mesocycle, and that's 4 weeks. I'll go a little bit more into that, but that's a great period, 4 weeks, a month, to say, I just talked about fresh starts on a post I did. Katie Milkman wrote this great book, How to Change, and say Labor Day is a great time for a fresh start. You know, you wipe the slate clean, and all your tries, well, I tried this, I tried that. People say, that's experience. You're going to evolve one more step forward, right? Calendar, track it. Cue stacking is, so when I get up in the morning, I go right into my Zen den, I call it. It's a little room, it's got a yoga mat. I go into my Zen den and I do my 10-minute morning routine. So that's the cue. I get up and I go there. I used to stay in bed and I would start thinking, and it didn't work well. You know, I was doing conditional thinking. If only this person, or if only I hadn't done this or that, then everything would be great. By the time I get out of bed, I was behind and my head was hanging. So that is something suggested to me, and, you know, get up and at it. Get your stuff ready the night before. It's also called getting your environment ready. Just try for 2 cardio, 2 strength, right? Just start there. Buddy up, group up, and goals and fun, right? Do fun things. Strength training. So this is the science behind strength training. I think cardio, a lot of people have the cardio, you know, going down. And but here, this is where a lot of people come in the gym, and these are kids, college athletes, you know, a lot of people who have played sports, but the basic ingredients of strength training. So periodization of training is taking a period of time. So they started it back in the Olympics years ago. That's a year, right? So you take a year, there's 4 seasons, right? 3 months, break it into 3 months. Those are macro cycles generally. So phases of strength training. So endurance is tone and cut, right? That's what most of us want most of the time, but we do have to rebuild muscle now and then. But what I see a lot of people doing is they want endurance, but they're doing 10 reps and too much recovery time between sets, particularly with the texting. Drives me nuts in my gym. I put a sign up, no sitting on equipment while you're texting. And I go over and tell them, I go, hey, no, all right. I go, you timing your sets? So notice the recovery time between sets. The longer it goes, the heavier the load would be the weight, okay? So endurance is 1 to 2 exercises per body part, 3 to 4 sets, which is 15 reps or 30 seconds. Reps are meant to count time, 2 seconds a rep, right? And you can do a whole body workout in like 36 minutes. I have them designed, you know, because it's 3 minutes, and then you're adding in calisthenics and core with that too. And that's where we want to be. What happens a lot of us though is, you know, we're not aware and we're not strict on the guidelines of the recovery time. So we go over 30 seconds, or we'll do a circuit, or we'll want to do something new every other week. We're not giving the body time to adapt. It needs that 4 weeks to really be able to be measured. And the hypertrophy is, you know, that's adding muscle mass. And then strength is strength. You can see, you know, 1 to 3 exercises, 3 to 5. Any questions on that? But that toning is where we'd like to be. All right. Mental and physical toolbox. So these top 5 things up here, there's a lot of great stuff out there. In that book, but also in Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before? Has anyone heard of that book? It's Dr. Julie on, check her out on TikTok. I've never been on TikTok in my life, but she's also on Instagram. So it's all little mental health things. And this is her 5 things. But I also know I did this book, Design Your Life. Anyone hear that? Yeah, from Stanford, those professors, engineering professors, 4 realms of life. I like this, the 5. So these are the things: exercise, sleep, nutrition, routines, and relationships. And again, how we are is how we will be in a day right now, what I did today. And so exercise, I think, is a great catalyst, gets you going, right? Gets the body moving, changes the mind, gets rid of energy, brings energy in. Sleep is like the new, you know, last frontier a bit, right? It's coming back in. It used to be nutrition. I mean, nutrition's tough. Remember, this is a process. We're never going to be perfect. We never get there. I would get up at 4 this morning, taught a boot camp, trained 8 people, blah, blah, blah. Rode up from Rhode Island. And so I got here early. And I just went and had a steak and cheese sub down in the corner. So we're all human. You know what I mean? So no one's perfect. All right. But routines and relationships are key. Our routines, identify our routines, right? Build relationships first with ourselves, all right? And schedule your success. I think scheduling is so important. Meditation. So meditation now, all right, who's been on a 10-day silent meditation retreat? Who can do that, right? So it's gotten crazy, extreme, right? It's like me riding my bike across America. But what I say to you is, when we meditate so that we are able to create some space between us and the stimulus during the day, and we practice with the smaller stuff, right? And so it's just about being able to breathe and come into your body and not react, right? And that's what meditation is. 2 minutes meditation in the morning I do. Sometimes 5 if I have a little more time. But it does create space. Journaling, off and on for me. Anybody journal? My niece Courtney's good at it. And all right. And now yoga, I really think yoga, mobility is key. It's just changes everything. It gives you that exercise feel too, right? Keeps the posture going. We're able to get up and down off the ground and stuff, right? So the strength training we talked about, cardio, steady state cardio, right? You could talk, but you don't want to. That's the great pace, right? Versus VO2 max. Now, there's a lot of new data out there. Anyone familiar with Mark Hyman, Dr. Mark Hyman out of Newton? He wrote like 10 or 12 nutrition books. So his last book is Young Forever. And him and Attia has outlived, Peter Attia. Did you guys see that Netflix documentary with Chris Hemsworth, the handsome Australian? So Peter Attia was on that. That's a great thing. That talks about hormesis. Anyone familiar with that? You are, but it's just these names they come up with now. So hormesis is extremes, like hot yoga, the cold plunge, and putting that stress on the body gets the body to react that way. And that's what they're talking about in those books. And they say your VO2 max is a direct indicator of how long you will live and how healthy your lifespan will be. And there's some crazy data out there. It says that the top 2% of people in your age group of VO2 max will live 400%, have a 400% more chance of living longer than the bottom quarter. So VO2 max is key. You should kind of check that data out. I don't want to get too far into it, and I already am. But it's really interesting, and it will get you out there, right? So you'll feel good in the moment, but long term, you can really improve things. All right, questions yet? Who wants that second book? You got to ask a question. Positive motion creates positive emotion. That's one of my favorite mottos. So you're feeling stuck, move your feet. I say, move your feet, move your mouth, but talk to one of your go-to people. And do you have go-to people? No one teaches us this stuff or asks us, right? But start to think about it. And identify and take advantage of support systems. You heard that already. At school, yeah, it's tough there. But also Michaela, you call her, she'll call me. We'll find somebody that will help you. That's what we do. My son hangs with her. They played on the same high school team, right? Yep. And then they're still friends all these years later. You're not alone. We always think we're alone, especially when the heat's on, right? It's like, oh, man. So that's why it's good to reach out, know there's others. And when you feel good, help someone else. Just ask them how they are. And there's great listening skills we can teach you. Gratitude mindset. First thing in the morning, it's great to do. I don't do it every morning, but I notice if I'm going south that I try to do that. But I have my morning routine in certain practices. Hit my Zen den, hit the coffee on the way by. I do a little bit of yoga, a little bit of stretching in that 10 minutes, and then I go read 3 different pages from 3 different books that help remind me of where I came from and where I want to go. And it doesn't take that long. I've timed it. It's like 5.5 minutes if my mind is focused. If I have to keep reading things, repeating them, I go, all right, 10% less today, Tom. Buckle up. Don't say a lot. Identify your motivators. What gets you going? You know, I like, some music, I love riding the bike. I love talking to people about this stuff. I unpack your feelings, so that sounds, unpack your feelings, right? But if we start to like actually do some of this stuff and think about it, so what is a feeling? Anyone want to take a stab at that? It's an emotion, right? So emotion is a message that your body is giving you based on some past experience that was happy, glad, sad, mad, right? And okay, but that's not the present moment right now. So that's where the meditation comes in and the breathing and the posture. All right, I got to bring it back. I got to be here, right now. And that's what we keep practicing. And that's one of the, I think, great things about exercising and joining with other people for conversation. Other prior influences. So one of my children, I guess I have to call them adult children now, called me last night, and I could tell by the somberness in his voice that he was struggling. And I had been wondering why he hadn't been calling me lately as much. And right away, I think, oh, what did I do? This must be something I did. But I let it. It's been a couple of months, but he had started a new job. Completely forgot that. It's all about me, right? But so he's in a new job. He's an attorney as well. And it's a new field, new part of law for him. And he's in over his head. And he's always been very accomplished, confident in everything he's done. And he said, I said, what's up? He goes, oh, I suck. I'm like, all right, you're going to have to unpack that for me. But what we got to was, so there's a great thing, this book I'm reading, it's Let's Talk. And it talks about 4 stages of learning. So first there's unconscious incompetence. So when we go into something new, like if I said to you guys, all right, we're going to do one of my boot camp workouts and we start doing it. You don't have any competence in it. So you're going to feel, you don't even know. You're unconscious that you don't know these things because you haven't learned them. I haven't showed you yet. That's the first stage. The next stage, which is even more painful because now you're conscious incompetence. Now you're aware that you're incompetent. And, take the sting out of the word incompetent. Don't mean it that bad, right? And so that's stage 2. So that's where he is. He's conscious that he doesn't know a lot. And he's not used to that. So he's very uncomfortable. And then we went into the next stage is conscious competence. Yeah, so conscious competence, right? So now you're aware and you know. The 4th and best stage is unconscious competence. It's just you're comfortable. It comes from you, right? And so that he was like, yeah, that makes sense. And I said, all right, and let's work backwards from where you are. You woke up this morning, you got up, you went to work, but work backwards from work when you started feeling crappy. What did you do this morning? What did you do last night? He goes, I didn't do my usual Monday morning yoga class. I go, oh, all right. And, what time did you go to bed last night? He goes, I stayed up a little bit. We had to cook out late. I go, all right. So now, remember, we want the best you going into this incompetent area so you can learn fast like you usually do. And that's what we do. That's what all of us do, right? And poor Maya, we're putting you to sleep, huh? Stress, anxiety, all right? Favorite of mine. Kelly McGonigal wrote The Upside of Stress, Joy and Movement. She's really, really good. So when you feel anxious or you're stressed, right, what's your first thought? Whatever you're thinking about, right? It's like, oh man, I got to talk in front of all these rich people in Hingham and shit, I brought my good clothes. I didn't get a chance to change either. I had to change my t-shirt. But, all right, where was I? All right, you look at it, is it a threat or a challenge? Right, this stress, what's going on with me? Is it the exam? Is it the way this person's treating me? Is it how I'm feeling about myself? Is it a threat or a challenge? So the way we determine the difference is resources, right? If I have the resources to meet it, then it's a challenge. Oh yeah, I can do that. I can probably pass the exam because I did enough work. But if I didn't, then I'm probably not going to pass it and I'm going to be, really anxious. So then I want to study. But looking at it like it's a threat or a challenge is the beginning of language, using language to help create some space for yourself between what's going on and how you feel and how you are, right? And that leads us to the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. So the brain has these two nervous systems. So the sympathetic is if you're going to do math. You know, you're right down there and you look right at it. It's like that good stress. I need some stress to focus. And here I am, right? But if I take that and I start to look at my relationships, it's not going to go good, right? Because what you focus on grows. So that's the sympathetic. Parasympathetic is rest, digest, the creative part of us, right? It's the open part of us. And the way that we turn these on, the parasympathetic is through movement, through exercise. So that's why we want to practice with, all right, I don't feel like working out. That's just kind of anxiety. Man, it's not going to work. Look at me, can't get rid of this, all that. But no, so that's stress we want to practice using to get going. So when you feel the anxiety, the stress, and okay, what is it? All right, and even if it's a threat, that means I got to go to my team probably. But right now in the moment, I gotta rally. I gotta pull myself together. How I am? How am I? All right, and then I go back to all right. How do I eat? How do I sleep? Right? How are my relationships? How are my routines? And Ethan Kross, he wrote this book, Chatter. It's kind of new. It's good. So it's about our internal language, and he talks about. One of his great things is psychological distancing. So think of something that you do, you're not good at, and it's like, I'm a slob. I have like a spill, a hole in my lip. I do stuff, right? But I'm not a slob. What I want to do, so when I say I'm a slob, that connects me to my identity. And it's not something I really want to say to myself, I wouldn't say to someone else, right? So think of an example for you that's probably a lot better than that one. But what I want you to think about is how that conversation goes in your head and give you some options for it, right? So I'm a loser, right? Because I did something, right? So what we want to do is when we start to hear the I language, right? We want to create some space by saying, not a loser. I'm having the feeling that I'm a loser. I'm noticing I'm giving myself that loser talk, right? So I am noticing that I'm doing that. And then you switch to you. You say, you do this and it's not helpful, right? So now a little more space, right? And then you switch to, all right, Tom, come on, snap out of it, come into your body, get going. And that's, again, the physical, so I can go into the parasympathetic. He says it a lot better in the book, but that's the idea. I, you, your name. I, you, your name. Create that distance. And that's that self-talk and psychological distancing. And another good example of psychological distancing is what's going on 6 months from now. How much effect will that really have on me? Will I even remember it? And we'll start to realize, okay, I'm zeroing in on it. And ACE, this is the smaller version of above and what we've been talking about. So it's from ACT therapy, acceptance commitment therapy. Anybody ever hear of that? It's an awesome new therapy. It's they call it third wave CBT. The cognitive behavioral therapy is like the gold standard from like 30 years ago. And this is where we can learn a lot ourselves and have conversations, right? And so ACT, acceptance commitment therapy, has a lot of mindfulness aspects. And what it does is it gets you to, it's a value-driven therapy. So you get your values down and then you go through, some mindfulness exercises and such. But anyways, that's a big picture of that. ACE, that's one of the great techniques there. So again, it's that I feel anxiety, stress, whatever it may be, right? So I have to acknowledge it. I have to acknowledge that I'm having the feeling or the thought and put it in that language, right? And then C is come into my body. So even right now, if we all, so we sit in chairs like this these days, and then we start to do this, right? So what I'll do to people a lot of time is come to the edge of your seat, cross your ankles, get them lower than your hips, and I can tilt the top of my pelvis forward. And then I open hands, open heart, so key. So now if I sit like this for a little while, this is not happening as much, right? And this is meditative posture. But I came into my body. Now I completely forgot what I was talking about, acknowledge, right? But, you know, think of that, right? Coming into your body, just standing up. And I think that's, what do we got here? Oh, this is a great thing to do for all of us, right? It's VIA Character Institute. So they have a survey, it takes like 10 minutes, and it tells you your 24 character strengths in order. And so then what you can do with that is you have your values down here. So a value-driven life is when stuff comes, so this is all nice, right? But then there's life, happenstance, right? When this comes, I can take it, and I give the example of, you know, I was walking by some laundry on the floor, and I just kind of looked at it, kept going, and then I was like, all right, is that in line with my value of kindness? Should I pick that laundry up, you know? And I did. So what were the values, though? Those routines, habits we talked about, all those good things that we can do, start from the... So nowadays, when I counsel a lot of people, what I'm hearing is, and this is from all ages, right? What's the first thing you do? I go through the day, right? When you open your eyes, what's the first thing you do or think of? I get my phone. And they're on the phone like 20, 30, 40 minutes, right? And they're doing the news and checking out what everyone else did and they didn't do. It's awful, right? I mean, I thought it was bad thinking, being by myself and thinking, but now having a whole phone worth. So we want those good routines. First thing in the morning, get it done early, right? Get up and at it, rise and shine, let's go, right? And then you cruise through the rest of the day, right? And you'll see it in that book. And then systems, environments, communities. But that VIA, that character thing there is really great because it gives you something to work with, content. And what to do when? Foundational workouts. Get those workouts going. Try out some group classes. I teach a boot camp 6 a.m. in the morning. I've been doing it for years. It's the best thing. Always feel good leaving there. Electives at school. You know, I took a bunch of tennis, which, you know, was fun, kind of comical, but fun. I took yoga. Intramurals was great. Then you get out and meet people. And, you know, have that courage to encourage others and be vulnerable. You know, rock climbing. I haven't done that. Rowing, swimming, strength training, martial arts. And that, you going to Northeastern?
No.
Where you going?
I haven't applied yet.
All right. Well, you're way ahead of the game. We'll get you next year. But I thought someone was going to Northeastern. That Marino Center over there is really good. All right. Questions? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Sergeant Corbett, for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. So my name is Anwar. I've been working with Samaritans as a community education outreach trainer. And we do a lot of suicide prevention workshops. I've also recently graduated from graduate school as a clinical mental health therapist. And so I want to thank Tom for the great presentation I think we have to kind of lead us over to mental health. So my topic will majority be about suicide and suicide prevention. I'll go over different things that we have to offer. I'll also go over some risk factors, warning signs, and protective factors to look out for. And then I'll go over the 3 ways you can help someone who is struggling or having thoughts of suicide to kind of look for. So the first thing that I'd like to go over is what our program has to offer. And so Samaritans has a 24/7 helpline. I'll go over what that entails as well. We also have a community education outreach program, which is what I am, and plenty of other trainers that go around and provide these type of workshops and presentations. They also have grief support services for those who lost a loved one to suicide. And they offer, I think, group therapy as well as one-on-one individual therapy. The first resource that I'd like to go over is the Samaritans 24/7 helpline. I'd like to emphasize on the 24/7 helpline is that they are trained to listen to you and to validate you in a way that I feel like a lot of us can't really do. I feel like when our friends or when we go to our parents with our issues, we tend to want to give solutions and rather than listening. So they're trained to listen to you and validate how you're feeling and provide you with the extra resources if needed. So the first 24/7 helpline is through Samaritans, and you can call or text this number or HOPE. Again, they're free, confidential, and anonymous. So if you just feel like you're having a rough day, or if you feel like your child is having a rough day, or a loved one is having a rough day and they just need to talk to someone for whether 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, they can call this resource, talk to them, and then if they feel like, okay, I've gotten what I want out of it, then they can hang up. So that's the first one. The second one is 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Does similar things to the other 24/7 helpline that I just went over with. So it's a 3 easy number to memorize, 988. Again, it's free, it's anonymous, it's confidential. So unless you're in imminent danger to yourself, anything you say to them stays between you and them. Again, they're trained to listen to you and to provide you with extra resources, which is a really great resource. Another really cool thing that is new is a resource called Hey Sam, and this is designed for young people by young people. So if you feel like your kids or friends at school want to communicate and talk with someone who might share similar experiences to them, who are in the same journey as them in school, they can text this number. They can text Hey Sam, and it's offered up to the age of 24. Really cool thing about Hey Sam is that if you wanted to volunteer, so if you know your kids, or if you wanted to volunteer, for example, I know you're in high school, if you wanted to volunteer for this, you can do so. And they have great supervision, so they teach you how to listen, but then they also have supervisors who like supervise you and lead you through the way and guide you in the different steps to take. Any questions so far? So what is suicide? Suicide can be seen as the point in which someone's pain exceeds their ability to cope with that pain. So it's seen as an end way for a lot of people who are struggling or having the thoughts of it and struggling with mental health. There's a lot of stigma about suicide and having these type of conversations and being open to them. I think we all grow up having different experiences and hearing different things about mental health in general and suicide as well. I think one of the huge stigma that we need to be able to reduce is shifting our language and the language that we use. So instead of saying committed suicide, we need to shift it to died by suicide. Because the more we use committed, we take away from the fact that the person died from a mental illness. They died because they were sick. It also relates to committed more of, seems like they committed murder, and certain religions it's a sin. So it takes away from what they died from, and that they were sick and it's a mental illness, and there's ways to deal with it. There are many layers and narratives, of course, to every single human, and this is the same thing for suicide. We don't really understand suicide to the fullest, right? If we had a clear answer to it, I think the factors that I will go over next would have been lower. But suicide is very complex. It's not something that we really understand. So I think being here for these conversations, being open to them, is deconstructing the stigma and learning more about it first, and then understanding really how to deal with it as well, and learning more about it. Some suicide facts and figures that I would like to go over with. So 48,344 people die by suicide every year in the US. That's with more than 1.3 million attempts nationwide. If we look at the states with the highest suicide, Massachusetts is up there. It's one of the top states for people who attempt or die by suicide. 800,000 people die by suicide. That means 1 in every 40 seconds, someone either attempts or dies all over the world. I just did this workshop earlier, all the way in Billerica, and a kid has asked me, is it one person every 40 seconds in a year or in a day? And that's in a day. This data is very, very high. So something to keep up. I'm going to go over some risk factors, warning signs, and protective factors. So risk factors is what might put someone at a risk to have those thoughts. Warning signs are different. Warning signs is if someone is already having the thoughts, the things that they will show. So the symptoms that will be showing for them, and then protective factors to kind of decrease those thoughts for them. The first risk factor that I would like to go over is family history of suicide. So if there has been family members who have attempted, who've struggled with mental health, who have thoughts of suicide, that can influence other family members in the way they deal with it. Again, if there's physical, mental illness, or depressive disorder for the person who's struggling or in the household in general. Trauma of any type of form, I think one thing we need to get better at is comparing our traumas. My trauma is bigger than your trauma. I don't know why you're feeling this way. You have everything that I don't have. So decreasing that. So any form of trauma, whether it's physical trauma, sexual trauma, verbal trauma, child abuse trauma, that can put you at a higher risk of having the thoughts of suicide. If the family is dealing with substantial loss, if they're having issues in the household, with whether it's with their job, social issues, family issues, relation issues, they're dealing with homelessness or eviction, that can be a huge risk factor. If one is facing oppression or an injustice system such as racism or sexism, that can put them at a higher risk factor. To keep in mind, substance use, addiction, and this also includes behavioral addiction, that can put you at a higher risk factor. And behavioral addiction could go from gaming, gambling, eating disorder, that can put you at a higher risk. And then lack of access to healthcare. So depending on where you grow up, the city you're in, the type of healthcare that's being provided for you, the type of resources that are out there for that. And then challenges that the LGBTQ plus community people face. And this is much higher in youth for many different reasons. And again, homelessness is a high risk. So these are risk factors. Warning signs, again, is the signs that people will show if they're having those thoughts. The first sign that I like to talk about is if a lot of people will talk about it, they'll write about it, they'll make jokes about it in school or in college or to their friends or family. The reason why they'll joke about it is to get a reaction, to see how are you going to respond to them. Are you going to respond to them in a way that they feel like they can trust you to keep talking to you about it? Are you going to comfort them? Are they going to feel like you're a safe space for them? Are you going to say something like suicide? Why are you even joking about that? Suicide is a dumb idea. Like, you wouldn't do that. That would push them away from you. So to see if you understand the topic, to see if you can help them through it, you'll hear direct statements like, I'm tired of being a burden, or no one would miss me if I were gone. If you feel like there's changes in weight, appetite, hygiene, or appearance with someone, again, this is a very uncomfortable topic to talk about because it's not a topic that we really talk about on a day-to-day basis. So if you feel like your loved one, your kids, your students are just seeming different to you, maybe their weight appearance is different drastically. They're not showering, they look different to you, they're not eating, question that. See where it's coming from. Ask them, hey, I'm worried about you, and tell them why you're worried about them. If they're declining in schoolwork or school performance, so if kids are just going to school because they need to go to school, but when they're in school, they have their head down throughout the day, they're not really listening, they're not there mentally. If they lose pleasure in their interests, hobbies, or activities, and this can happen drastically, like within a week or 2 weeks, this could happen. If there is extreme mood swings, including a sudden mood lift, so if they felt the happiest they were last week, and then this week they're not feeling so happy, don't just assume that they're going to be fine, they'll get over it, next week they'll be happy again. Get them the help that they need, talk to them. If you feel like you can't talk to them, if you feel like you have your own issues going on, or you might not understand them, provide them with one of the numbers that I provided with you earlier and sit with them throughout the conversation. You don't need to say anything, but you are supporting them and being there for them while sitting with them throughout this conversation. Again, if they're sleeping too much or too little, they're sleeping too much, they don't want to think about anything, they're just sleeping throughout the day, throughout the night, they go to school, they sleep, or if they're not sleeping at all, they're up, overthinking, that's a huge risk factor, a warning sign. There's impulsive behavior to look out for, and this again could be like sudden, it could happen drastically. And And then isolation. I think isolation is a huge one. So they're isolating from everything that they love, everything that they know, and they just want to be by themselves all the time, 24/7. I see this more with kids as well, where they go to school again because they have to, and then they can't wait to leave, to go home, and then to be by themselves. So these are some warning signs to look out for. Some protective factors. I think that you really cannot place happiness within someone. Like, you can't make them happy if they're not happy. However, you can provide them a sense of purpose or hope. So if you know someone who has talked about the things that they want to do, the things that they like to do, the plans you guys made together, and then out of nowhere, they're not talking about it anymore. They're talking about, I see no purpose in it anymore. I don't want to live anymore. You can kind of provide that sense of purpose and hope for them again. You can remind them of the conversations that you've had with them. Remind them of the good times. Remind them that you can get through this and we can accomplish what you want to accomplish. Having life skills, problem solving, and creating coping skills. A coping skill can be from 4 seconds to 10 minutes. So creating that and then adapting it to your schedule. Again, like routines, and having that can be very, very beneficial. Having strong family and social support and connections, where I think family is where you kind of model like feelings, how to talk about feelings and emotions in the household to your kids, and then for your kids to be able to be open and talk about these things. Having interests, hobbies, and goals, and then having an effective behavioral health care system that provides you with resources, that doesn't judge you for having these thoughts or emotions, and then not being afraid or feeling ashamed or guilty for asking for help. If you feel like you need the help, ask for help. If you feel like a friend needs help, ask for the help. Earlier at Billerica, I got a lot of questions where kids have stated things like, I can't talk to my parents. They tell me things like, why are you feeling this way? I've done everything that I can do for you. I just don't get it. And so they feel like parents are not trusted adults that they can go to. If you feel like a parent is not a trusted adult that you can go to, use one of the phone numbers that we provided earlier, or a guidance counselor. A lot of schools have guidance counselors. A lot of them have social workers, and they can kind of lead you in a way of getting whether a referral or help you get through it. Limiting access to means, having faith or values, again, being able to express your emotions, and then, of course, having a sense of humor. Any questions so far? No? I'm going to go over the ways you can help someone through 3 different steps. The ways you can listen to them, the type of questions to ask, and then knowing your limits and when to get help. So the first one is when you're listening to them, I like to go by a rule of 80-20. So allow them to express their feelings. 80% of it is them expressing their feelings and them telling you how they're feeling and what they're going through. And then 20% of it is you responding, whether it's through physical or verbal affirmation. Majority of the time, when someone is coming to talk to you, they want you to listen to them. I'm guilty of this. When my friends used to come and talk to me, my nieces, family members, I would say, let's go to the mall. Let's go take a walk, or let's go out to eat. Not knowing that at the end of the night, when they go home, they're still feeling what they felt earlier, right? It's just like putting a Band-Aid on the issue. So really allowing them to express their feelings and listening to their issue. Listening to them without any judgment. So don't feel like you're better than them because you're not feeling what they're feeling, and not really judging them for what they're feeling. Listening with your heart, not with your words. Just being compassionate to yourself throughout this process and being compassionate to them. This can be a very hard process for both of you, right? Putting away any distractions that might show you're present, to be there for them. And then an important thing when you're doing this with a loved one or a friend or someone or one of your students is to paraphrase what you hear and validate what they're feeling. So don't change the topic. Don't translate what you feel like you heard. kind of paraphrase. If someone says, I'm just feeling overwhelmed, I can't do this anymore, then you say to them, I hear you say you're overwhelmed. I hear you say you can't do this anymore. And that's really getting an understanding of what they're saying. You're revalidating that, and you're getting the correct statement from them. Don't talk about yourself or your own experiences. Don't say things like, I'm just so, like, I'm confused on why you're feeling this way. My issues are way bigger. Or why are you talking to me when you know I'm going through something myself? So don't make it about yourself. Don't tell them what their feelings are unimportant or it's just a phase, it'll pass. You were feeling so happy last week, you'll get over it. You're such a strong person, you'll be fine. Don't interrupt or change the topic. I know, again, this topic can be very uncomfortable. And if you feel like you're going through your own things and you can't listen to them, but you still want to be there for them, tell them, hey, I have a great resource for you. Let's call one of these numbers and they can talk to you and you can tell them how you're feeling and I can sit with you through this conversation. And then again, minimize feelings or experiences. We tend to always compare when it's different with connecting with someone about a similar experience that you went through. But I think sometimes we tend to compare way too much when we're having these conversations. The best thing that you can do for them is just to listen and to be there without giving them solutions right away. We're going to go over the type of questions to ask when talking about this conversation. And if you're talking with someone who's having the thoughts of suicide or who you feel like is just overwhelmed with life, might not be having the thoughts of suicide, but you still want to do a check-in with them to make sure they're okay, you need to be very, very direct. Being very direct is the best approach that you can do. I know at schools, teachers might, a lot of teachers, we were having this conversation earlier, that a lot of teachers might kind of walk around the bush with this conversation, especially with kids, because they feel like they don't understand. But you need to be very, very direct. You either get a yes or a no answer from them. So having questions with what and how, not with why. If they know exactly why they're feeling what they're feeling, they wouldn't come to you in the first place. They would find their own solution. And then don't make them feel like they have to answer to you. Asking why questions can be judgmental. So being very careful with the questions that you ask. So again, when you're asking these questions, speak to them as an equal. You ask the question to get an answer from them. So allow them to answer the question. And I'm guilty of this. I feel like we tend to ask questions and then tell them how they're feeling. No, I know why you're feeling this way. You're wrong. So allow them to answer. Again, 80-20 rule. Acknowledge their pain by using their own words. So rephrasing what you heard from their words. And then in this type of scenario, take your time in responding. Be compassionate, be sincere, and don't worry about finding the perfect words, the perfect solution, because it's a process. You can't fix this in one day. So really just being there and asking the questions and listening to them and providing them with the right help is the best thing that you can do in this type of situation. So being very, very direct. And again, this can be uncomfortable to do because we're not having these type of questions on a day-to-day basis. We're not checking within ourselves on a day-to-day basis, really. And just suicide in general, I feel like there's a lot of stigma around suicide. So being very, very direct is very important. I've struggled with this throughout my clinical experience in graduate school. I used to think that if I use a direct approach with my clients, that they would feel like I'm assuming how they're feeling, or they would feel like I'm judging them. But when I started doing it and I started being very, very direct, 90% of the time, it provides them a sense of relief and hope. It shows them that you understand the topic. It shows them that you care. And it shows them that if they were to ever feel that way or to ever have the thoughts, they can come to you and talk to you about it. Because again, we're not asking these type of questions on a day-to-day basis. So questions like, it seems like you've had a lot going on recently and you're feeling overwhelmed. I'm wondering, are you feeling suicidal? That's very direct. Are you feeling suicidal? Or questions like, I can hear how hard it's been coping with everything and that you just don't feel like living is worth it. When you say that, it makes me wonder, are you thinking of killing yourself? These are very direct questions. Are you feeling suicidal? Are you thinking of killing yourself? Or do you sometimes feel so bad that you think about suicide? Very direct. Or just, are you feeling suicidal? These are very, very direct questions. And sometimes we tend to be afraid to be direct and not ask these type of questions because we're afraid of getting the answer, right? I mean, it hurts to maybe hear a loved one is going through this or is maybe attempting or having the thoughts. That can be very, very heartbreaking to hear. But being very direct, getting the answer from them, and then you would be able to help them get through it, right? Instead of letting them suffer all alone with it. So don't ask questions like, you're not feeling suicidal, are you? Or you're not thinking of killing yourself, are you? You wouldn't do anything stupid, would you? Or suicide is a dumb idea, surely you're not thinking about it. When you ask these type of questions, even if they were to have the thought 2 weeks from now, 6 months from now, trust, believe you're not the person they're gonna come to have to comfort in, or to feel validated, or to feel hurt. It makes them push away from you. Earlier I said a lot of people will talk or write about it, or will either joke about it, and if you ask them one of the questions, they will push away from you. So again, being very direct with them and using a direct approach to get a yes or no answer from them. So if you ask, are you thinking of killing yourself, or are you feeling suicidal, and you get a no from them, then you continue listening to them because you are a safe space for them. You continue listening to them with compassion and being sincere to them. Don't tell them that you feel glad or relieved that they're not feeling suicidal. Tell them things like, I'm here for you if you were to ever feel that way. Take your time in responding. You really don't need to have the perfect answer or sentence or solution for them. And then if they say no, explain to them. You have every right to explain to them why you asked the question. You asked because you love them and you care about them, and you noticed one of the warning signs that we talked about. Or you notice that they've just been acting differently and you just wanted to check in with them. And if they were to ever feel that way, you let them know that you're a person that they can go to. So explaining that to them. And then if they say yes, knowing your limits and knowing how to get help, right? So you can be there for them through listening, through validating. You can ask the questions to understand what they need. But if you feel like they're in imminent danger to themselves, or if you feel like they have the thoughts and they have a plan and they're ready to go through with it, collaboration is very important in this process. You can collaborate with them and ask them if there is a trusted adult that you both can go to get the help right away. If they say no, or if you feel like they're in imminent danger to themselves, then you call 911. Calling 911 right away, and not worrying about if they're gonna trust you or if they're going to be mad at you. 9 times out of 10, people will understand and people will come back to you. So when you call 911, they'll either take them to the emergency department to stabilize them. And this is a conversation we've had earlier. A lot of people worry about bringing their loved ones to the emergency department because they feel like they don't really help. And I worked in the ED for 2 years and then an inpatient psychiatric unit for 1.5 years. And when you're bringing a loved one due to suicide to the emergency room, their main reason for them to be there is for them to feel safe. So the priority of the hospital is to keep them safe and to keep someone to monitor them 24/7, right? I know a lot of people worry that the hospital is not the best fix for them and it's not going to help them right away. However, it's keeping them safe in the time that they're there to help them move on to an environment that's also safe for them. Also, you can't, if someone is having an attempt of suicide or is having the thoughts of suicide, they're already going through a lot of heavy emotions and feelings. So bringing them to the emergency room just to get them to be safe. I think having a therapist there is not the best idea because that could be a lot on them, right? Opening all that trauma up and then telling them, okay, now you go your way can be a lot. So the best thing for them is to get stabilized, to feel safe, and then taking the referrals that they get from them, the medications, and then finding maybe a therapist or social worker to help them throughout the way. Some considerations to keep in mind: 911 can be traumatic, especially for those who have police trauma. To keep in mind, racial consideration for people of color. Some police departments also don't have clinicians that ride along or mental health de-escalation training. So there are other emergency service teams that you can call, such as the psychiatric crisis team, and that's their phone number over there. You can provide them with the zip code, and then they send someone to help you. There's also new programs called CPHC, where they have trained professionals, whether at Cambridge Health Alliance or Brigham Women, but Israel, they have them almost everywhere now, and they're trained mental health clinicians to be there with you and to kind of make the process much easier than being stuck in the emergency room and then the inpatient psych unit. And then if you feel like you can't call 911, or if you feel like you can't get a hold of the numbers that I provided for you, you taking them to the emergency room and getting them the help that they need and keeping them safe. That's understanding and knowing your limits, right, of how to help them. So you can be there for them, you can listen to them, you can ask the questions, but if you feel like they're in imminent danger to themselves, the best thing to either do is call 911, call one of the numbers I provided, calling the psychiatric crisis number, or bringing them to the emergency room and not worrying about if they're going to be mad or they're not going to trust you anymore, because they'll understand down the line of what you did and why you did it. Again, you can't do this alone. We don't have all the answers about suicide. It's very complex. Know that there are others to support you. Be mindful of your limitations and when to reach out and the type of help to get. And then also taking care of yourself throughout this process. It can be a lot on you to know a loved one or a friend is having those thoughts and is going through this. So you having someone you can talk to and taking care of yourself is very, very important. Any questions for me? No? I want to thank all of you for sitting through this conversation. I think you guys coming to these type of meetings and sitting through this is doing the work and deconstructing the stigma of mental health in general, and then understanding more about suicide. So I want to thank all of you for it. Thank you.
That was awesome. I know we've been here for a long time, so I won't take any more time. I just wanted to quickly wrap up for people who are viewing online later, that, you know, we had some really great skill building presentations here. And I think the takeaway is that we can talk about, you know, knowing your surroundings, whether it's going to college or a new job, walking around your own neighborhood. We learned a lot from Officer Corbett about just being aware of your surroundings, street smarts, making sure that you're not walking alone, that you feel safe. If you don't feel safe, where to go. Then we heard from Tom, and we really want to bring home that for parents and families watching this later, this stuff starts at home with stability and making sure that you are talking to your kids all the time. I think about it often. I have 4 very little kids, and you know, they want to come home from school and watch TV. And during the school year, this is not a model for anybody because it's really hard to make dinner when they can't watch TV, but we had to stop putting the TV on. And it was just as hard for me, but I want to make sure that that's not something that my kids do, is just go off by themselves all the time. So as we then listened to Anwar as well, a lot of these conversations, and admittedly, all of us have been in situations where it's like we put a Band-Aid on something. And the suicide rates, the overdoses, the safety positions that you're put in are often in immature minds. And if you don't have those skills, from whether it's from your family, from your resource counselors, from, you know, your local board of health who's here, you can't make these decisions, or you can't help somebody in the right way. So educating yourself, building strong mental awareness and health and fitness, and making sure that you know yourself, and then bringing that to other people. And of course, when it's out of your hands, making sure that you have, you know, 988 or the Hey Sam texting is so awesome. I think that's incredible for now. this day and age for kids to just be able to grab their phone and no one else will know that they're doing it, which is great. Just having a conversation like everyone else in the room is. So thank you all so much. If you have any questions, please email. All of my information will be on the flyer for this. So thank you. Welcome.
Bye.